What's happening, guys? Ronin Man here. We're out at Keysville, Virginia, at a organic cattle farm. What do you call it? It's farmsteading?
Farmsteading, yeah. It's a combination of homestead and farming.
Right. And what's interesting about this, what's really interesting, what Andy's doing out here, is that you came from difficult times, right?
Yeah.
You definitely came from difficult times. And you wanted to be out here, right? You wanted to live out in the farm, right? Is that kind of like what it was? You were just like, you were down in Brooklyn. You're like, I don't want to stay here forever. What were you thinking back then?
Well, it was actually specifically that Fukushima nuclear reactor melting down in Japan that kind of made me worry about where my food was coming from. You know, all the seafood got irradiated. And I just dove deep into the rabbit hole of, you know, the food industry and realized that I wanted to be part of it in a good way. And so worked on getting to a farm. It took many years from Brooklyn to this point.
Right. I like that because I think a lot of guys, you know, people are always looking for black and white. And they're like, okay, there's organic people and there's me, you know, like eating meat, driving a truck, right? And people tend to think of themselves as very not, you know, this is going to be like an LGBT farm or something, right? You know what I mean? Like that's, I think, a lot of people kind of think.
Yeah.
And I want to say that's definitely not the case.
Yeah.
You know, just
although
because
we welcome those, you know.
Of course.
You know, whoever got the guts to go out.
Oh yeah,
and try.
but the thing is what I'm saying is it's not a political thing. It's kind of like I like the Prius. Okay, and I always like the Prius because it's a technology that I think is very fucking interesting. Oh, yeah. And I don't give a shit if people think the Democrats drive them because I think the technology is cool and I think you're an idiot for thinking the technology has anything to do with politics. Because the guy who made that is a Japanese dude and he doesn't know what the fuck is going on with U.S. politics. He's an electrical engineer, right?
Yeah.
And he invented a way that you could save the energy when you go down hills and you could recycle that. There was no politicians involved in making that car. And there never will be because they're too stupid. So he made this thing. So the thing is, I like to separate stuff because I get brainwashed too. You know what I mean? I start thinking, oh, I can't do that or I can't go there or that's not me or whatever. It's like, that's bullshit, man. Sitting here with the cows, watching them eat the fucking grass. This is awesome. The ducks over there, you know, the birds, like everything that's going on out here.
Yeah.
You know, it's fucking awesome, right? It's very fucking manly, cool shit, right? Yeah.
Yeah, people attach meaning to things. You know, it's like I wonder what my parents tell, you know, their friends. Oh, you know, my son is out in Virginia and he's farming, but it's very nuanced. It's not, you know, overalls and chewing tobacco. It's actually understanding, you know, organisms, biology, and how they interact for sure, and how to make money off of them.
Right, and freedom. You know, because you're the captain of your ship out here. You know, you got these cows. Now, here's what's interesting, guys. These cows you're looking at here, he got them for free. So basically, there was another farm, and there was a divorce. There was some storms, and there was a freaking divorce. A flood
flooded her whole field, took out all her fencing. You never know what'll happen.
But basically, what happened was bad luck. Yeah. I would bet my money that the divorce was the killer. Because there's always floods. There's always cows getting loose. There's always shit going on. But there's not always divorce. And divorce is when you got to sell everything. You got to split it up. And especially with a thing like a farm that's not very liquid, financially liquid, it becomes where you just lose it all, right? Yeah. You know, it's just like sayonara to the whole goddamn thing, right? Where a house you can sell and you can take the money, buy two houses or whatever. But farms, businesses, they just get destroyed in divorce. That's it. Yeah. They're gone. Yeah. So it's basically, she could not even...
You also lose a farming partner in divorce if you're doing it together, which they were.
Right.
You know, and I'm sure we'll touch on it at some point, but people's help is very important with this endeavor.
Right. So they couldn't even take care of their own cows. So they said to Andy, he said, look, we'll give you the cows. And then, you know, he took care of them for a year. Then she came back?
I got to this farm in November and made the deal late November and grazed them all the way through till July, and then I took them back to I took half the herd back to Pennsylvania where, where it happened.
So she worked the deal. She said, you take care of them. Basically, you help us out when we don't have nothing.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back later. And that's what they did, and took half the herd. And you made out, because each one of these cows is worth $1,500, right?
Pretty much. And I wouldn't have been able to. The whole thing that made it possible was actually, having grass and land that wasn't flooded, and me not being in a divorce. My resources were time and land, and the land came from a partnership as well. With the lady that I met.
Right. So you didn't buy the land. You just basically found somebody on Facebook who was looking for farm help.
Yeah.
And you're like, hell, I'll do that.
Well, she had land that, this land takes a lot to take care of. It grows up in the trees if you don't constantly mow it. And so she was like, I want to put cows on this grass. And so she put it out there like, hey, I'm looking for someone who'd be willing to open specifically this kind of beef operation on my land.
Right. So you said, okay, I will bring the cows. You found the cows, basically.
Yeah, found the cows.
She had the land. And now you got your own place. She's gone all the time, so you basically got the place to yourself. You run the place. You do it your own way. Yeah. It's fucking green acres. And it's fucking pretty damn awesome, It's beautiful out here.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting for you here listening is that there's a lot of options that you don't know about in life. You might think in your little neighborhood, your little area, that you've thought of everything, right? But there is shit like this. Like, you can run a fucking farm for a year, come out here, help a farm, run a farm, end up with your own farm, and you're like, what did you invest in this thing? How much money?
Well, there's always odds and ends. There's probably...
Put a number on it.
Last winter, the operation ran me $3,000 out of my pocket for the hay, the equipment, and everything. But then I just got cattle out of it worth way more. Yeah. Way more.
Right, so you got a ton of cattle.
Yeah,
so
it was a net gain. I would say a net gain of $7,000 to $8,000 of at least just, animals.
Right. But I'll tell you something. It is more than that, because here's the thing. You're doing social media. So people around the world are watching videos, 24-hour videos of your ducks eating. They're watching videos of you feeding the cows. They're watching drone footage of that. Yeah. So what's happening is, not only is he selling the meat, but you're building at the same time a potential, ecotourism, farm tourism kind of thing. People are interested in what you're doing. Yeah. You're building a brand. You're building the brand. I'll tell you, a brand is something, because there's two kinds of brands. There's a brand like, let's say, this farm brand. And there's also a brand like a personal brand. But you're doing it interesting. I was talking to you yesterday. I realized you're doing a farm brand. You're not doing your own name. So what's the advantage there? Well, there's disadvantages and advantages. When you build a personal brand, it's easier to get started.
Yeah.
Because there you are. You're there all the time. You're smiling. They know who you are. Yeah. And a personal brand is the easiest thing to start. But a farm brand or a company brand is harder. But the advantage of that is that you can leave, someone else can run the place.
So I actually
now you can actually do both. You can start as a personal brand, you can go to a company brand, but I think it's good to think about it. I built a lot of brands. Yeah. It's good to think about it before you start. What are you trying to build? Are you trying to build something where you're going to be here all the time? Or are you going to try to build something where you're going to be in Thailand 8 months a year, and you got people running this thing, and you're watching the cameras to make sure they're doing everything right? Like, what is the type of thing that you're doing long term, right?
Yeah, I've built a personal brand over the years doing traveling stuff and a lot of the art stuff. That's my major. I'm an animation major, and so a lot of my personal brand was based around like travel and illustration. But we do, we build the brand off the farm too. We have a farm page and whatnot, and that one is harder to build. But the right people find it. But it's definitely the content you put out. It's got to be good.
Dude, with the content here is fucking awesome. Like, you don't even have to think about it. All you got to do is like have people come by and give you ideas. Like I was telling you about the what is it, the walnut dust there, how you could use that.
Yeah.
You know, basically, if you look at beer, right? What was it? Who was the company? One of the companies, they hired a marketing guy, and he made this new advertising campaign, and it said, "We clean our barrels 8 times. You know, we keep them so clean, we keep them perfectly clean." He showed the filming of the cleaning of the barrels, and every other beer company didn't take it seriously because they said, they're like, "Dude, you dummy! Every beer company does it 8 times. Like, this is what everybody does." But he did it as a marketing campaign. Yeah. Now the difference is, as a consumer, you don't know what's in your food. Yeah. But when a company tells you what's in your food, you're grateful. Yeah. Because now you understand why, you know, what's important, right? Mm-hmm. So by doing that campaign, it made it very difficult for the other beer companies because that campaign was very, very catchy. It's one of the most famous campaigns of all time. That beer company made tons of money because people were like, that's the company that really cares. Yeah. They do it right every time. And the other beer companies, they were fucked because all they can say is, we do it 8 times too. And it looks like a copycat. Yeah, and it looked like...
They were on it first.
Yeah, and they explained it in a way that the consumer, it hit home with them. So that's what I was saying, like, there's that dust inside of the feeder here. Yeah. And what's the purpose of the dust?
Oh, it's black walnut shells that are ground up, and it's kind of like, you know, you give it to the cattle, and it cleans their insides, cleans maybe some parasites and whatnot out of their body, and we give it to them right before we butcher them for beef. So you're getting less parasites, you know, in your meat. You know. Keeps it clean. It keeps it clean.
Right. So the difference is, that's why I say, like, this is a great marketing piece you want to show them, because a lot of people, I guarantee you, are not going to put that in there because they got to buy that thing. How much is the bucket cost? How much is that bucket there, or whichever one it is?
Oh, you know, we ordered the molasses and stuff from a bulk restaurant place, so it was super cheap. And the black walnut dust actually came from a local herbalist, so that was super cheap. Again,
how much for a whole plastic bucket
of molasses? It was like $13.
Okay, and how about the dust?
And the dust, I honestly don't remember, but it's not prohibitive cost.
Okay,
It's worth it, and they eat so little.
Right, but see, the thing is, you carry that motherfucker out here every morning, and so it's a tough walk, right? Yeah, carrying this stuff.
We use the lawnmower, but the grass is just too tall now.
Yeah,
we got a little tractor.
You put in the time and energy, plus you buy it. And the thing is, when you buy a piece of meat, you don't know the guy cared enough to add something that gets rid of parasites, naturally and healthily. You don't know that. You know, I don't trust organic labels even, you know. But if I see the guy doing it, if I got a 24-hour camera watching these fucking cows and I see him doing it every morning, I know that that's what he does. There's no doubt about it. You can't fake it, right? So the thing is, by marketing and showing what kind of person you are, people will want to buy your beef. There's no fucking doubt about it. Yeah. You know, and that's the thing, is like, you're taking something that's old, you're making it new while you're being an animator. Yeah, and you're having a great life. You're building like 2 or 3 businesses at once, and you're having a good time, and you're learning, right?
Yeah. It's funny because these practices, giving cows molasses, giving them black walnut hulls, it's it's kind of like a technique from like medieval poverty farmers, you know, because nowadays we you know, farming's at such a scale. People have antibiotics and big equipment and lots of stuff to deal with, you know, fattening cattle and deworming them and stuff. But these are tricks that, like, the peasants were doing, and I really embrace the peasant idea of taking care of these animals, because you're not investing any money, and you know, your sweat equity is appealing on social media. They're like, dang, he's treating them right. He's feeding them molasses. He's moving them daily. He can pet the cows on their head, and they like him. You know, he's one with the animals.
Right. Well, I tell you, I had a great time coming out here yesterday and carrying the molasses and feeding them. You know, I had a great time. So I'm sure there's a lot of people who would love to come out, help you for free, and learn something,
lots
right?
Of free help.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, no, I love it. And that's why I'm always welcome on farms, because I like didn't grow up in a farm, but I ended up in a farm. My relatives in Finland have farms. Yeah. And little farms like this, like little farms, And I went in out there, and they would have me working, and I loved it. And so if you're sitting here listening to this saying, well, I don't have any experience, hey, fuck that. You can learn this shit so fast, and it's not complicated, and it's very enjoyable to learn. And it's one more piece of the puzzle where you're not disconnected from reality of life. You know, you understand how things are done. I mean, of course, theoretically, you understand cows eat grass and then meat's made, but when you actually see it and you do it yourself, you see it totally differently, right?
Oh yeah.
You know,
I mean, you take them through every season. Sometimes they get an illness. Sometimes they give birth. I've had cows step on a thorn bush, and I've had to pull thorns out of their hooves, and it's like you're just with the animal.
Plus they get loose, right? You got to go chase them down, and the neighbor calls you. And
here's a funny story. First night I brought them here, they were so confused. They actually, all of them hopped over the fence. I don't even think I told you this. All of them hopped over the fence because I still had a job in town that I was leaving at night when I went just to get some cash when I first got here. And so I dropped the cows off. They were all confused. They were all mooing and loud. And they escaped. They all escaped, and they were all over the block. And that's how I got to know my neighbors, because everyone around me also farms cattle. And so, they were not surprised. They actually expected these cows to escape because they knew cattle. And they helped me round them up, and we brought them back, and now I know all the neighbors, and it's kind of a funny joke. We cracked some beers afterwards. But I was totally stressed, but they were like, it happens. Yeah.
That brings up an interesting point. I think one of the reasons why people are afraid of trying new things is because they don't want to look dumb. So like a new farmer, right? The cows all got out, the neighbors knew, you didn't know.
Dumb.
Yeah, exactly. You look dumb, right? And the point of the key in life is you should always be looking dumb in at least one area, because if you're not trying new things. Yeah. I worked in a sawmill in Sweden for 4 months, and it was tough work. The guy before me lost his fingers in this machine I was using. Yeah, got them all cut off. And I learned to use the machine. I was careful because I knew what had happened to the guy before me. Yeah. And that's why no one was using it. No Swedish guys were using it. But I was like, paid into the table. They're like, you want to use this machine? The last guy lost his fingers. I'm like, sure. Yeah. So,
don't come crying to us.
Yeah, exactly. They were like, and I did that. And I worked I drove the forklifts, which I've never driven. I was carrying wood everywhere. I worked in the paint room. I mean, I did all kinds of stuff. And it was hard labor from morning to night. And that was when I got really into chewing tobacco, which was not good. But anyway, I made good money. I got paid, and I realized that I saw another side of myself, because I didn't grow up around this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But I really liked it, and I really liked the guys. I got to say this: the guys I worked with in Sweden, it was the least political job I've ever worked in my life. There was no politics at all. There was no politics. Blue collar, man. Everybody was friendly to me. Yeah. I mean, they had their things, different personalities, but one guy was trying to convince me to get married all the time. Oh,
that's big. Yeah, that's
he was funny. My boss, he liked me. He's like, man. He says, you got to settle down with a good Swedish girl. Oh. You can work here we'll get you illegal, because I was working illegally. He said, we'll get you legal. You'll marry her. You'll get the visa. Have kids out here. Life is good. Get a horse. You ride a horse after work. Yep. And it was pretty tempting. I mean, the girls were hot. It was not something totally not tempting.
I hear that a lot too out here. The old timers, all the farmers around here are over 60, except Randy, who's in his early 50s. But they're just like, you out here by yourself. You got a wife. You got a house. I'm like, no. I just kind of. Definitely unconventional, as you were with the song. Right. Well,
marriage really came from necessity.
Marriage would help on a farm, for sure. At least it did.
Marriage came from places like these, where it wasn't like Brooklyn, where you're just like on the internet. You don't need a wife to help you with the internet.
No. You had like 7 kids, and they worked. They would be out here, not me. The kids would be out here. And the father would do more high skilled work, perhaps working on the machinery, perhaps running the farm store.
I think one of the things that you want to do is, if you do think about this kind of business, you definitely want to think about social media marketing, because that is definitely where it's at. Social media marketing. And it's about, filming things that people wouldn't know about, like taking the things out of their hooves, chasing them when they're out. That's the kind of stuff you want to film next time.
Yeah.
You want to have all that stuff on film, and that will be something like a reel of interesting things from your farm and like things you learned.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff people just love, you know, is to see the cows and what happens when they get out, what happens when this happens, what happens when they get sick.
Share your struggles, essentially. Share the
success.
Share the ups and downs.
Yeah. Like what is it really like to do a farm? And then also the other thing is a 24-hour cam, because 24-hour cams are good because you can't lie.
Yeah.
And that is a good thing. And so many liars out there. There's so many people that deceive, that when you're actually raising cows organically for real, and you give a fuck, you want people to know that it's actually real, because everybody knows the right words to say, right? Everybody likes to, on the land, blah, 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 farm to fucking whatever.
Oh, yeah, there's buzzwords. There's, organic is a buzzword, and I don't even use that term anymore, It's a certification organic, but it's just natural. It's just totally natural. Almost sometimes I just call it wild raised. I mean, they're just out here. Right.
And also, you can see the fences here. Basically, we take the fences and then move them around, so the cows, they'll eat one area and they'll munch that up, and then we'll then move them over to the other place. Yeah. Just real quick, what is that philosophy, like the mulching of the grass? Just real quick, what is it, so they can kind of understand? Because I guess if you don't know cows, you'd think, well, just put them in a field and let them eat grass.
Most people just throw the cows out and they wander around and they eat their favorite food to their favorite grass to the point where it dies, and they're not focused. But if you think about buffalo moving across the American landscape, they were predators. They were bunched together, they were in a herd, and they were moving across the landscape, with predators at their heels. So there was a certain rhythm to the way they would graze. And that's kind of what we try to replicate here. The term is mob grazing or rotational grazing, but we're the predator, and these fences are the predator. Every day we move the herd to a different spot. And it keeps the land fresh. It keeps it from getting stale. It keeps it from getting stepped on all the time. And you can tell the grass is longer than anyone around here's.
Right. And it was interesting the way you said, if the grass is standing up for too long in the winter, it's going to get all dried out. There'll be no juice. Yeah. But you got to smash it down. Yeah. And the cows smash it down, and then that causes it to do the cycle of life, right? Mm-hmm. It becomes fertilizer, and then it becomes better mulch, and then becomes better land, right? Yeah. So it's like that. You're doing that process naturally, but you're not some fucking hand job idiot. You're just doing it. You're out here fucking doing it. Yeah. And it's fucking pretty awesome, And the thing about you is interesting. You were telling me a story yesterday. I want to get just real quick on that. Yeah. Is that a lot of guys come to Ronin Man because of tough times. Either it's a divorce or something went wrong, something happened, something was difficult. Maybe it didn't look difficult, but a lot of things that don't look difficult are real fucking difficult. So there's times in life when they're just hard for whatever reason, mentally, emotionally, financially, and so guys are looking like, how can I, do better, right? Yeah. Tell us about just a little bit about your background. I know that you had a tough time in Brooklyn, and before you came out here, and to me, this is like the key part of the story, because you see all this and you think, wow, he had it easy. He was in Brooklyn, animating, making tons of money, and then he decided to come out here and buy a farm. And he goes into town in his Rolls Royce and gets fed grapes all the time and stuff. Oh
yeah.
What?
Just living the house.
Do you have a Rolls Royce back in Brooklyn?
Oh yeah, I've got one in the barn. It's just in the tobacco barn. I don't bring it out. Just special.
Well, that's because you're starting that cult on the side. Yeah.
I don't want the neighbors,
Indian mystic thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We gotta dig my cave at some point for the hot intern farmer gals. But I did not make a huge amount of money in New York, even in the graphic design and illustration industry, and that was like a big wake-up call to me, because it's like, you go to school, you get your degree, you have an idea, you're like, my dream was to be a Walt Disney animator, if you could believe it, and so you got to start from the bottom, work for companies and stuff like that. So even though I was in New York doing that, I wasn't making a huge amount of money. I can hold that, and I left Brooklyn because I was just kind of unhappy with kind of my ignorance of the food system, and I missed the natural world. So,
what about the tough times in Brooklyn? Like,
the tough times. Oh yeah.
Tell the fucking tough times.
Well, you know, it's interesting.
How you got into that art studio and like rented the homeless. That's the shit. That's the shit right there, because this is what guys want to hear, the real deal.
Well,
this is we have not even started the real deal here. Andy comes from very tough times, and so the beauty of this place is even more beautiful when you consider the roughness of life.
Yeah.
And the situation that you've been through.
Yeah.
What was it like?
Well, so one, the pursuit of the first dream of being an animator in New York, that was when I was homeless in Brooklyn. I had moved to New York again. I had returned to New York. And was homeless. You know, essentially, I had a godfather promise me a place in Manhattan that I could stay while I looked for work and kind of try to find art jobs. But you know, we just had a falling out. It wasn't a good fit, and so it was like, I'm just going to live on the streets. Everything's open in New York 24 hours, but you got to sleep at some point. So, you know, you're in Starbucks, you're looking for work, you're going to interviews, you're trying to keep your suitcase of clothes clean so you don't look like a crazy person, but then you got to sleep, and so you just kind of find a little corner of a train station and sleep there until the police wake you up. But it was like that for several weeks, you know, homeless in Brooklyn, until eventually I was carrying my portfolio of art with me everywhere, until eventually I met a Japanese woman who took a pesticide manufacturing warehouse and turned it into an artist residency. And she was like on the down low, renting it to artists that she enjoyed their work for super cheap. And so I got in there. I squeezed in there and was able to.
How much rent did she charge you?
It was $800 at first. It was $800, which is not too bad. It was like all that I had on me at the time. You know, I was 20 when I returned. Because I went to Paris and then I came back.
Pesticide chemical. You lived in a pesticide chemical factory. That's hilarious.
That's so bad. It was on the front of it. It was in Flushing in Brooklyn, outside of Bushwick. Ridgewood was the neighborhood, but on the front of it, it said it was like the name of the pest company. It was like Pestco, and you know, so when I got there, for the first time, I was like, what the hell is this, man? You know. Yeah. What is this? But then, you know, she let me in, and there were studios. She was basically leasing these big warehouse spaces for super cheap, $800 for a huge room. I mean, like 20 by 12, like a art studio. Wow. In Brooklyn, and that was like a godsend. And I was there for 3 years. I lived in that residency for 3 years.
But I want to get before that, you were on the street and things were fucking dark, right?
Yeah.
You're sitting there like looking for work, going to interviews, sending them out. No one's fucking helping you. No one's hiring you. You got dirty clothes. Oh, yeah. You can't clean them. Everything's just getting smashed in the suitcase every night. You know, how did you feel then, like before the studio? Because that was really the tough times, right? You're like, fuck, what were we thinking? Like, gets pretty dark, man, you know.
Well, I've almost got a more relevant story to this farm regarding hard times.
Okay.
So this is my operation, and this is my first operation that I completely own myself, the LLC, the animals. But before that, for years, it was actually me and my high school sweetheart traveling and working from farm to farm. And her and I were managing a farm for several years. And then we ended up splitting up. And then because of that, I ended up getting depressed and losing, you know, my productivity on the farm. And hence, so losing my job, my home on the farm, and, you know, my fiance at the time, all in the same month. And so it was like I basically took everything that I owned and packed it in the back of my truck and traveled across the country for an entire year to kind of just, because, you know, literally started at point zero, you know, just go from being employed, having a house, you know, having a partner, to just nothing, like living in parking lots and fucking cooking on the back of your tailgate. So what's relevant about that is because I put my fate in other people's hands. You know, I was the manager of somebody else's farm. For years I was an employee on another farm, and after years, what did that get me? Fucking Nothing.
Right.
Well, it did get me experience. It got me experience and wisdom and understanding how farms work and what I wanted. So I was homeless for the longest time after that for a whole year. Living out of the truck.
That was the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that was in Boulder. I lived in another art studio, which was way smaller. So I after getting booted off the old farm, I was like, man, what the hell am I going to do? You know, I had a dog. I have a huge dog. He's a big husky. He was living with me too. I also had a cat at the time. It was crazy. So the whole truck was just packed full of my shit. Everything I owned. I had to sell all my plants, all my animals, everything that I had that I was running for myself on the last farm. It was gone. It's 0.0. And so I was just traveling, and I had ended up going to Boulder, Colorado, to meet a high school buddy of mine, and just to visit him. And I ended up renting a tiny little cubicle in an art studio. It was like an art workshop, and they rented these little 4x6 cubicles to people. And so I rented one and basically worked all day until everybody left, and then slept in that cubicle. And if I had to cook, I'd run out to the truck in the parking lot and like whip up the camping stove, same camping stove we ate on, and eat, and watch my back and make sure nobody knew that I was fucking living there. I was living at this studio
for 1 year, right, without people knowing.
Yeah. I was living in downtown Boulder, Colorado, for like $100 a month because it was a cubicle. Like it didn't even have walls.
Right. Cubicle, right?
Yeah, it was my dog too, and my dog was almost as big as the cubicle. So
right. I think the thing was interesting. We were talking yesterday was the difference between somebody who gives up and stays homeless, and somebody who is homeless for a while, but does not want to be homeless and wants to make it, and he's going to keep trying. Yeah. What would you give advice for somebody who's in that trough right now, where it really does feel dark? Like the parents are not there for you. Yeah. There's like nobody there. There's nobody to help you. You're in a very low state. Yeah. You have no finances.
I knew nobody.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody in Boulder except my buddy who was actually an hour away in Denver. So it's just like no help.
Right. What was the difference? Because I think that's that we can end on that. But what was the difference between you and these other guys who gave up?
Yeah. Well, the thing that kept me motivated, I guess, was one, my art. It always helps to have some sort of way to express like your angst. If you're feeling down in the dumps, you need some expression, whether it's a hobby, something. Plenty of fresh air obviously helps, but like the art really, I was very focused on writing my first graphic novel at the time. I just practiced and really brought my art to a whole nother level, and I was working a lot and saving money because I had my eye on the prize. It was like, once I get out of here, I'm gonna go buy my own piece of land. So it was just that goal, that North Star to aim for, and then the day-to-day just something to do, something to progress. And I'm not going to lie, it was hard. It's hard to like self-motivate, but
I got something to add in there for you, because the other thing that's interesting too, looking at you from the outside, right, like an intern coming in the farm, is a lot of people when they get into animation, because I spent a lot of my life in Japan where animation was huge, right?
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of guys get into it because they want to draw girls with huge titties and, all this stuff,
There's
right?
a lot of that.
And so that becomes the only model that a lot of guys can think of, is basically to copy the most popular animation themes and styles, right? But you did a very sad story about a father who lost his daughter.
Yeah. Trucker.
So, a trucker, right? So
I met a lot of them on the road.
Okay.
I met a lot of those truckers. That was kind of the gift of homelessness, was like, sleeping in truck stops. You meet hobos, you meet truckers, you meet people that have gone through way worse shit than you ever imagine. And, if you just buy them a coffee or a beer and, they share their story, you can find inspiration in these, like, bad scenarios you find yourself in. So
right. So you write art, you do art for your life. It's not some fake It's not some fucking art, really. It's an expression of your own story, right? And your own emotions. That's what we're talking about here. Yeah. So if you're thinking about stuff, whether it's a farm or it's fucking art or whatever, it's like the idea that you have to be like other people, or, you know, because it's animation, it has to be happy. That's bullshit. That's total bullshit. You know, it's like he just tried to bust out right there.
Bust out.
Yeah,
I gotta get that fence going too.
She just went right into that fence there. Silly. Yeah, she's like, I know that there's no electricity there.
Sometimes they forget, but sometimes they know when it's hot. But
she was going for it. She was going to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, man.
But you know, I think it's a beautiful thing, really, to use yourself, and that's kind of what I do too. Is like, I just kind of people will say, make an episode about this, and they're like, if it's not burning in my mind, it's not going to happen. It has to be something that's like burning in there.
I will say this, you know, about why, you know, what kept me occupied day after day for the whole year, you know, just hours in a cubicle before work on the art was, it just writes itself. Like, if you're super inspired, it just is like, boom, and you just hit, like, you just have to get it out. You just have to get it out. And like, the story to me,
it's like a baby and a woman. Like, the woman has to give birth or she'll die.
Your water breaks.
That's why the baby's born, because the baby gets too powerful, eats too much food, and the mother will die if she does not get rid of the baby. That's why birth happens. That's the timing of it.
Too powerful,
and so that's the thing. I think an idea is the same way.
Oh yeah.
It just gets too big. You got to fucking just get it out.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story. When it did come to me, it happened when I was talking to a couple friends after being homeless on the road for about 6 months, and then I kind of had a run-in with the law, and it was super stressful, and just all at once this idea of like someone else on the road having difficulties. The story basically just wrote itself, and it just was like completely focused and motivated to get it out. So that definitely helps. Like, you know. Run with those ideas that seem like they're just trying to burst out of your head.
I think there's a lot of guys with strong, powerful stories, you know, and everybody's got a different way of doing it. Everybody's got a different way of living. But this brings me to something that I've wanted to talk about for many years, and I've never really done it. Okay. But you read the book too. There's 2 books. One is Stephen King on writing, and the second one is Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art. Mm-hmm. Those 2 fucking books are some of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah.
And that's very similar, and it's 2 men too. Very similar, you know, like thinking.
Rather manly men too.
Oh yeah, these fucking guys are cool. Oh yeah, Stephen King, he wrote that book after he was hit by the car, almost died.
Yeah.
You know,
well, he had started it, and then he had got hit by the van, and he had put it off for years and years, and then he was like, no, I gotta finish this, because he was like, I could die, you know, I could die.
Right. If you've ever thought about doing something creative, right? Yeah. You got to read these 2 books, especially The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield. That, to me, that's the finest work
It's short.
On motivation, on understanding what it is, you know.
Yeah.
And if you basically comprehend these ideas will just start popping in your mind. Yeah. And if you're already a like kind of creative person, whatever it is, you will start to feel kicks in the gut, because you'll realize, you fucking asshole, you're not doing it. You know, and that's what it is. It's a huge kick in the ass. The whole book is just like one boot after the other in your ass. Like, you're not doing it. Yeah. Write more. Get it done. Get it done.
That great line. It's like the world deserves to hear the muse through your voice, and it's like he makes you feel bad. You're like, oh, well, you know, I shouldn't deny the world. It's very motivating. It's a short book, but it's full of like great little quips like that. But about a kick in the ass, I'll share something super personal. It's like, so this story that I was writing while living in my truck about a trucker who's living in his truck and dealing with, you know, loss and shit. I was looking at a court date in the future, a couple months in the future, about 90 days in the future, that could potentially end up with some stressful things happening. I'll just say that. So it was kind of like a timer. It was like, well, you're probably going to want to write this before that court date to get things settled, because you're going to just be you're just going to want to get this out now. That was my kick in the ass. So the more I was super stressed, so I can almost say the more stressed you are, the more inspired you are, because the book I wrote 15 chapters, 360 pages in 3 months. So, you know,
360 pages in 3 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the whole script is available online. Yeah, the whole script's available online. It's a the first draft, obviously, but
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, well let's close it up here. We're going down to North Carolina today. We're gonna
South Carolina.
Is it South Carolina?
Yeah, Columbia, South Carolina.
Columbia is the city.
Pass through a whole state before. Yeah, you got to pass through all North Carolina.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice because it's a very nice day. It's a perfect day. The weather's great. It's beautiful out here, and then season is great. It's kind of the end of summer. I'm out here in my t-shirt. It's not. Don't have need a jacket. There's not windy.
Yeah.
What's coming up? Winter's going to be tough out here. Is it tough?
Well, it could go either way. Last winter was extremely mild in terms of weather and very difficult in terms of economics because of the drought and the hay prices. So we'll see. Water lines could freeze. Cows could get frostbite. Or it could be super chill. We'll see. But
you're going to get some more cows, right? You're going to get more ducks, more cows kind of plan? Or you
yeah.
want to ramp this up, right? How big do you want to get?
As much as the labor force that I have can produce on this piece of land, and I've got several collaborators. One that's doing chickens, and one that's doing herbs, herbal teas and everything. So the more people that want to make it happen, the more collaborators, the more food we can produce, and we'll see where it takes us. I got all the beef is pretty much sold already.
I saw you sell a whole cow at the we were downtown. You saw some people you knew, and the guy's like,
"Oh yeah.
So what's going on? When's the beef?" Because what was interesting for me, and this would be another good marketing piece, is that you don't even have to sell your beef because this stuff is so good and it's so real that everybody in the area wants to buy it.
Yeah.
So you don't even need to sell to some dumb New York guy, some rich New York guy. Like that's kind of like people's dream is I'll sell it to a rich Chinese, I'll sell it to a rich guy from Tokyo, I'll sell it to a rich New Yorker. And then they don't know anything, they'll buy it. Yeah. Your stuff is so good that you could have a hard time getting it out of the area.
Oh yeah.
Because the guys around here are like, give me a whole cow.
Especially after the pandemic, people are just looking for beef, just looking for beef. But on that, like a cliff notes for that is like, go out, get off the farm, make friends, go to town, make friends, because then people will hear what you're doing. Not just social media. I mean, social media is great, it helps, but make in-person friends. People know who you are. Tell them about your endeavor. Make connections, and you'll be swimming in business. All my latest art jobs have been word of mouth. People I've met, people who've seen my stuff, like. Definitely, we are a social species. Make friends. I don't know. Go your own way, but like with others.
Yeah, and also, it's interesting how we got here because we were not planning on coming here, but you contacted me once on email, and I think I slowly responded. And then you commented below a video, or you commented a video, then email, and then I responded. Then you put your phone number public, and then you added me on Telegram, and you told, hey, come on by, come check out the farm. And then we ended up here. It took a little bit of work because for us, it was out of the way. We had another plan. We were going down to see Tyler in South Carolina. We had a plan. And then you were just like, hey, you got to come here, check it out. And that was very good because, I think a lot of good things came out of this trip, So, so it's like, it is like you never know. Once you got a business, you want to start to be more social, bring more people in, let more people know what you're doing. They'll either help you, they'll have ideas, they'll buy, they'll support you, they're good friends, they might have ideas to improve things and financing or whatever.
I got some ideas from this whole interaction, and it's like, the way you guys came here was very similar to how a lot of other people who collaborate come here. It's just, I see an opportunity, I reach out, and if they're down for it, they come, and it's just a day on the farm. They get to live the life for a day. So thanks for coming out of the way, dude.
Yeah, and I'm going to end on this is continue. What was it Steve Jobs said? Is what did he say? What was that? What was the word he used? Be honest, be naive, be stupid. He had something like that. Continue being stupid. Like basically, don't be afraid to look dumb. And I really think he was right about that one. I really do. Every time I come to a new place, whether it's rock climbing, mountain climbing, farms. I never do what everybody else does. Like, I'll wear the clothes I want to wear, and I'll find out the hard way what I should wear. Because what I realize is there's a blue pill and a red pill for every single aspect of life. So I'm not going to go straight into what everybody says because I don't know why. And I don't know if usually people are pretty messed up. They're just spending money, getting in debt, doing things that are not necessary. What I really love the way you do this farm is that you keep it, like a lot of farmers would say, you're doing it all wrong. You know, you don't have this, you don't have that, you're not investing in that.
They think I'm strange.
Yeah, they think you're strange, right? Yeah. And they're like, you don't have this kind of tractor, you don't have that. And the thing is you have a very good life where most of them are very stressed. Even out here in the farm. They got $10,000 in debt a year, they got all kinds of money flying out of the pocket. They got I'm sure that any kind of disaster is super stressful.
They sell to the auctions, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, however, anyone's life, however they farm is how they farm. But, you know, I know everyone I sell to, but they sell to a warehouse for very, very low. But I make friends, and those friends give me business, and it's good business. So.
And it's good meat. It's good fucking meat.
Oh, yeah.
We've been eating steaks every single day, every morning, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I hope that's been helpful, useful, some good information there. And sayonara from the farm.
Bye-bye.